Let's talk about sets, baby. Hello, it's James again from My Sports Compendium. I don't smoke. I don't much care for the habit, and also it's widely believed to be bad for you. But the silver lining of this somewhat debilitating and dangerous habit was the advent of cigarette cards that have formed a huge part of card and sports memorabilia collecting for over 100 years. They were some of the earliest sets picturing sports stars of the era, and there is one that has taken my heart in particular since I begun my collecting journey. For me, a true base set of soccer or football, whichever you prefer. The set, Godfrey Phillips Sons 1896, odd and fantastic general interest set, featuring none other than the first entrant in 1998's Football League's 100 Legends list, Mr. Billy Bassett, William Isaiah Bassett. Now, it's true that publishers such as Baines, Briggs, Richardson and Sharp had been producing cards with famous football players on them around the same time and quite possibly before this. However, the Godfrey Phillips set were some of the first cigarette cards that featured famous footballers, and the two representatives of the sport within the set were two bona fide superstars of their day. Charlie Attersmith and William Isaiah, aka Billy Bassett. These two were possibly chosen due to them facing off against each other in the previous year, the 1895 FA Cup final, a match in which Attersmith's Aston Villa won 1-0. Funnily enough, this was actually the last FA Cup final in which the original trophy was being fought for, with the trophy, the first one ever made, going missing soon after Aston Villa's victory. It seems like they needed Pickles the dog on the case. The set possibly contains 13 cards, and it really is a bit of a higgledy-piggledy set that truly is a general interest of the contemporaneous time period, the late 1890s. It contains 13 lithographic printed images that really are beautiful, and the checklist is eclectic, it's eccentric, and it consists of unidentified people, footballers, jockeys, cricketers, and national landmarks. The checklist includes the two footballers we mentioned, Attersmith and Bassett, but let's have a look at some of the other cards in the set. Firstly, two jockeys, Mornington Cannon. Look at that, it's a really beautiful card though, isn't it? Look at the colours. Mornington Cannon and Tommy Loates. It makes me a bit anxious touching these actually. I've had them protected, but for this video I got them out. I didn't want to have them in the plastic, but it's making me a little bit anxious. The next one, there are two cricketers actually. One is the absolute gargantuan figure, W.G. Grace, which I don't have, but the other cricketer is Archie McLaren, who was also quite an esteemed cricketer back in the day. This one doesn't focus, but actually, funny enough, the imaging on the card is actually blurred in itself. Just looking at the backs here, you can see London 1895, but the set is documented as an 1896. 7 gold medals and 2 silver medals awarded to Godfrey Phillips and Sons for excellence and purity of their manufactures. Then there's 3 London landmarks. The first being the Houses of Parliament. Those lithographic printed images are beautiful though. Still standing to this very day because Guy Fawkes didn't have his way. Tower of London. Which is where you'll all be sent if you don't subscribe to this channel. And then Trafalgar Square with Nelson's column. There are also 3 women in this set. 3 unidentified women, I might add. The first, whom I call hands on hips with hat. Don't know why. The second, hands on hips, no hat. And then the third, I call her Madam Butterfly because, well, she looks like a little beautiful butterfly. So of the 13 known cards, that brings the total to 12. So you're wondering, who's the last card? Must be someone massive, right? The last card, Dr. Jim. Who, or D Jim. I call him Dr. Jim. And you may be wondering who on earth he is. Now, if you're wondering that, you would be well in your right, as there is no documentation of who Dr. Jim is. So if you do know who he is, please get in touch or leave a comment, because I am very interested, like quite a few other people, in who he is. So yeah, but he's a funny looking chap, isn't he? Look at the moustache, hat. I might go as him to my next Halloween party. Right. As for my own progress with the set, I've made a decent start. Missing a few of the key cards in the set, but it's a set which I'm happy to wait for and try and acquire them at a responsible price as well. But this is a beautiful set. I mean, the spread just looks wonderful. But of the cards I do own in this set, it's the Billy Bassett, which holds huge sentimental value for me. Now, the Raw card was one that I bought pretty much on my first day in the hobby, after I tried to buy my weight in David Beckham cards and stickers. I started thinking about some of the other people and figures that were reasonably well known to me that I wanted to collect, and Billy Bassett came to my mind. So I did some rudimentary research into him, found this set, and then it was pretty serendipitous, because this card was on eBay. The auction was finishing in about an hour after I started looking for Billy Bassett. So with good grace, I won the and fortune. I won the auction, and I graded it. So I had one of the earliest sets, one of the earliest cards, one of the first superstars of association football, on pretty much one of my first days in the hobby. As for the card itself, well, it's a great card. The colours, PSA 2, back's quite clean, but the colours are slightly faded. Now there are some more vivid Billy Bassett cards that I'd seen where you can actually see the sky blue and the clouds. It almost reminds me of the Ben and Jerry's imagery. So it's a shame this one's faded, but he's actually wearing his England kit as well, which you can just about see the 3 lines on this version. So yeah, it really is a beautiful card, and I absolutely love it. Let's do a little bit of feng shui, or as my sister once said, let's do a bit of Tai Chi when she was moving a chair around. But anyway, let's pop him there so we can see them all there. As for Bassett the man, he was 5'5" tall and was initially considered too frail and weak for the role of a footballer, when it really was a lot more physical back in those days. But he stood head and shoulders above his peers for his achievements on and subsequently off the pitch. Characterising him so briefly is very hard in a video such as this, and I'm really quite careful not to make this into some sort of rehash of his Wikipedia page. But he was one of the first true wingers of the game, with a fellow English vintage football legend, Ernest Needham, calling him without doubt the best outside right in the British Isles. He possessed a potent goal-scoring threat, as evidenced by a fantastic return of 61 goals in 261 games. He has some beautiful other cards, which I love, all centering on one image of him. He's got a circus girl card. He's got 2 Ogdens as well, one of which has a wrong name. So if error cards are your thing, then go ahead. But I love the Godfrey Phillips one. I absolutely love people like Bassett, to be honest, and West Bromwich Albion. As when I think of clubs like West Brom, I think of them as like these salt of the earth football clubs, with there being one of the 12 founding members of the Football League way back in 1888. And despite large-scale corporate takeovers and accusations of a loss of heart within the game, which, I mean, they're not completely unfounded, but if you look hard enough, that heart is still there, beating as strong as ever. That intent, that essence of these clubs, there's something just so innocent and pure and real about it. If you just look at West Brom's sort of branding, imagery, there's so much intent there. The club's original nickname was the Throstlers, which was the archaic name for the bird the thrush, because many thrushes would nest in the just behind the ground, and they nested in the hawthorns, which there were quite a few hawthorns bushes behind the ground when it was built, and subsequently West Brom is called the Hawthorns. Their crest still sports the thrush just in the hawthorns bush there, or the hawthorn's leaf. I'm not sure. I'm not a horticulturalist. I'm not entirely sure what you would call it, but it's just I just love stories like that so much. And the Throstlers now have been replaced in the early 1900s by them being now referred to as the Baggies. But even the story of the Baggies, the people collecting the ticket revenue in the early 20th century would come around with these cloth fabric bags, and the crowd would start chanting, "Here come the bagmen," which would often accompany the teams coming out. Then that was then turned into "Here comes the Baggies," and subsequently the nickname stuck. I mean, just absolutely, I love stories like that, and I love the West Brom crest. It's been modernised a bit, but yeah, so we'll pop West Brom there. Bassett also strikes a chord with many West Brom supporters this very day, as he's inextricably linked to the long-term survival and subsequent prosperity of West Bromwich Albion. He was born in West Bromwich. He was a local boy, and after playing as a child in some tiny local sides, he played his whole career at West Bromwich Albion. He obviously had huge achievements on the pitch, as we've already mentioned, but he served as a chairman of the club from 1908 to 1937, following his retirement from playing. He was a member of the Football League Management Committee from 1930 to 1937. In the same years, he was also an FA Council member. He saved the club on multiple occasions from extinction and paid the players' wages from his own pocket. Bassett's contribution is especially poignant when considering the number of hugely important figures that have risen to prominence or come through the ranks at West Bromwich Albion in English football. We consider one of the greatest midfielders, Brian Robson, and also an absolutely iconic player, Laurie Cunningham, who joined West Brom from Leyton Orient in the late 1970s and was one of the true first black superstars of English football, having a very successful career at Real Madrid. Would they have had the impact in their careers if West Brom hadn't existed, and without the intervention of Bassett? Who knows? A testament to the affection for Bassett that the people of West Bromwich had were when he died at the age of 68 in 1938 or 37. 100,000 people lined the streets of West Bromwich to pay their final respects. So there you have it. A truly astounding number for a truly astounding and influential man. I hope you've enjoyed this episode on the base set of soccer and a bit of Billy Bassett. Thank you so much for watching it. It means the world, and I hope you're enjoying the videos. If you have, like them, subscribe them. There's plenty more coming, but for now, goodbye.